mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, where I watch shit so you don't have to. And today I'm here to talk about Season 6, Episode 2 of Amazon Prime's The Expanse, entitled Azure Dragon. Well, the title, for starters, is based on the ship that we learned about last week that essentially controls all of the ships that are hurling rocks at Earth. They hatch a plan to go destroy the ship so that way they can, have deal a severe blow to Marco's ability to attack Earth. I found this episode to actually be surprisingly underwhelming. I felt like very little happened in this episode. We've only got the show's much smaller now, and we only have small groups of people doing like very direct things. Like there's not large, complex plans here. Everyone's dealing with something that's very straightforward, very simple, and that makes sense when you're trying to wrap up this season. But I'm kind of shocked that, given that this is only a 6-episode season, that this episode felt almost more of like a transition episode than one where it's like, okay, this is a 1/6 of the final story that we want to tell here. It felt like they had time to kind of just fuck around, and it's like this would have been a perfectly serviceable episode if you had like a normal 10-episode season, or this wasn't the last season, something like that. Something we just go, okay, we learned something, we move forward or whatever. But with only 6 episodes left in the final season, I feel like you can't really have episodes like this where very little happens. It kind of feels to me like Amazon really doesn't care about this show, and they put money toward it. But when I look at it from a bigger perspective, right? You look at, okay, they're stopping the show with several books left to potentially still adapt. Instead of giving, not only are they not giving us a full 10-episode season when all the other previous seasons have been 10 plus episodes, not only are they not doing that, not only are these episodes not even an hour long, they're more like 40 to 45 minutes instead of, say, like 55, 60-ish. Not only is it only 6, not only are they less than an hour, but they also have the nerve to make one of these 45-minute episodes have not that much happen. And it just seems like a very, like they just don't really give a shit about making this end respectably. And yeah, like that really bothers me. And it's not to say that this episode was bad or anything like that by any means. It was a solid episode. I just found it underwhelming given what I feel this show should be doing to wrap up with only 6 episodes. 6 episodes you put on yourself. Like, you could have had a 10-episode season. You could have not canceled it. But you give it 6 episodes. So far, the first 2 have been under 50 minutes. And I don't understand why so little happened here. But I am going to talk about the very little that did happen. But that's just kind of like my overall thoughts on this episode this week. I just feel like they should have done more when you're talking about 1/6 of your final season. Like, we're already 2/3 of the way through this thing. And yeah, I don't know. There wasn't a lot that happened here. The most interesting stuff that happened for me, or is happening for me, is actually the stuff on Laconia that they're starting off the episodes with. So it does kind of look like it's going to play, like I said last week, where they're going to have a little bit of Laconia's storyline to start the episodes, which, again, I find that even more interesting if I knew it would get enough attention to build out an interesting story that could tie in with the main story at the end. But I kind of feel like there's not really enough time for that, and they're not really moving that portion of the story very fast either. I just find that part interesting because it's so different from the rest of the show, and I'm really interested to see what their plan is for this. So this week, the bird that Kara, I don't know how it's pronounced, killed by giving some of her food, she takes it back home and is essentially told, like, it's dead and nothing we can do, we'll bury it in the morning. And she's like, well, it has babies that we need to lift up so that the fucking weird alien dog thing doesn't eat them. And he's kind of like, well, her dad's kind of like, it is what it is. Like, they don't give a shit. So she opens up a drawer that basically says, Kara, don't open this drawer. She opens this drawer and takes out like what looks to be like a drone and starts to carry it uses it to carry the birds up to a higher level on this wall. And as soon as she drops one off, she fucks up the drone and it falls and breaks. This girl is this girl is a mess. She can't do anything right. And then now she goes to try to bury the dead one, and she opens the canister, turns her back to that alien dog thing, and starts digging. Like, you could have kept it closed until you were ready to put it in the ground, or you could have not turned your back to that terrifying alien dog thing. She did both of those things after having just broken this drone. So she's 0 for 3 because the dog thing eats. Well, I can't say eats. At the very least, it takes away the dead bird. Now, is there a possibility that it's going to do something to bring it back to life and not eat it? Yeah, sure. But still, this girl has been making a litany of mistakes ever since the beginning of episode 1. But I do really find that interesting, and I'm curious about this meeting that the parents are going to. That's just for the adults. I'm curious if we're going to maybe see that meeting in episode 3, because I feel like that meeting is going to probably have some pretty interesting information. So the storylines for Drummer and Philip, very little movement. Philip is not handling the death of his friend, him murdering his friend. He's not handling it very well. There's a great scene where Marco comes to get him out of a cell, and then he just lays into him with like really accurate information. You know, their plan is to essentially say that this guy attacked the superior officer, and Philip was acting in self-defense. And then Marco kind of stops and comes back because Philip seems dissatisfied with this level of punishment because he's carrying guilt. He probably wants to be punished a little bit more or at all. And but Marco comes back and he's like, me and Sin, C-Y-N, Sin. That was Naomi's friend, the chubbier white guy. Yeah, it was Sin. He was like, me and Sin used to go out. We used to get drunk as shit every night. We used to bring different women back every night. But every morning we would be right back on the line because we couldn't afford to fuck up because we didn't have anyone to bail us out. I'm like, oh, shit. Like, that was to me, that was one of the better Marco moments because those big speeches he gives, I feel like, I don't know, the big speeches he gives feel, I don't know, just a little bit cliche. Like, and I don't look at that as like a great acting performance. I just look at it as somebody like reading really loudly. Whereas I thought that this conversation with him and Philip was probably the best that I've seen this actor do with Marco. That was a really, really cool scene. Drummer, on the other hand, is about to pass off Michio, and we all know how she fucked up last week, passing her off to this guy Walker. And during this conversation, she kind of gleans that Walker is unhappy with Marco and that also he knows where all of his supply depots are. So essentially, Drummer says, hey, let's get all of these other factions together that don't like Marco and attack these supply depots. And that is the extent of Drummer's storyline this week. I have a plan. Like, that was the extent of Drummer's storyline. So, like, Drummer was very underserved in her storyline this week. Again, nothing happened. It was like a transition. It's like, okay, last week things went left. Next week they're probably going to start putting a plan up. Not putting a plan in motion. They're probably going to start actually working on getting these supply depots. And this week it was just, hey, here's my plan to get the supply depot, and that's it. And I don't know. I just felt like that was not a lot. Like I said, that we're crawling toward Philip. I'm thinking probably turning his back on Marco. But again, they're acting like there's 8 episodes left when there's only 4, and that's what bothers me. I'd feel way better about this episode if there were 8 more after it instead of 4. Let's see. Where was I? Avasarala wants Monica to make like propaganda films. I don't like calling them propaganda films. Monica used that terminology, but I don't necessarily think it is propaganda because propaganda, using that term, it feels manipulative, and it is manipulative, but it's also true. Like, it's like, okay, well, we are being destroyed out here. We do need to humanize this. It's a smart decision, but again, that's Monica's storyline so far this season in 2 episodes has been being nosy. And that's it. Nothing from Monica other than being nosy so far. But we've set her up for something. Now she can start doing this. So again, 2 episodes in, nothing with them so far. And now it's like, okay, well, there's only 4 left, but now at least we know what she's gonna be doing. But like every time we saw her up prior to that point, it was her bugging Avasarala. What's going on? Tell me. What's going on? Tell me. What's going on? And it's, I don't know, pedaling in place kind of. And then lastly, the attack on the Azure Dragon plays out. Azure Dragon. I did find the kind of like shit chase scene in space to be pretty cool. You don't really see shit like that too often at all. Because I don't know, it felt realer. Like you see kind of like, I don't know, I like the fact that you would see like, you know, the Rossi pass them and then, you know, then they swerve and then somebody else hits some thrusters and then somebody else breaks and like it's breaks. But but like I liked how that felt like how a chase might actually happen in space, as opposed to something that's a lot more linear, where it's just like, okay, one person's going fast and somebody's behind them, and that's it. So I like the maneuvering in there. I liked Bobby jumping from the Rossi onto the other ship. I thought that was cool. My only complaint about that scene is it was too short. Like I would have liked it. They could have done that a little, like given that another 30 seconds or so. Like that scene was pretty cool. And it was a little bit short for my taste, but that was a cool scene. And then their plan kind of goes off without a hitch. Like I'm thinking like some heavy duty shit is about to happen. Like they're gonna try to take this ship and something's gonna go terribly fucking wrong. Because again, we're at the final season, only 4 episodes left after this one. We like this shit needs to be kind of like balls to the wall excitement here, and they take the ship effortlessly. Like yeah, they get attacked when they're trying to breach, but like that was to be expected. They knew there was going to be, Bobby said there was going to be 4 people there. I believe there was, shit, it might have only been 3. I think they killed 2 on the outside and 1 on the inside. So it might have only been 3. But, you know, that was to be expected. They handled that situation quickly and easily. And then they get this data and it's like a massive, like they got this hologram up and you see all these maps and angles and they've hit the jackpot. And you see Avasarala later smiling. They've hit the jackpot. And even though I was surprised at how easily they found success, they still kind of fucked it up. And I'm going to tell you how. So some of you may not be aware, there's a guy named Paul Heyman. He does like managing and wrestling, kind of like in the WWE. I don't watch anymore, but Paul Heyman's been around for so long. And he's kind of like he's basically like a promoter for wrestlers. Like he'll, you know, be like their manager. And he did an interview with an MMA reporter named Ariel Helwani, and they kind of talked about how you promote fights or matches in wrestling, fights in MMA, whatever. And Heyman said, you don't talk down your opponent like, oh, you're whack, you're a piece of shit, you're not any good, yada, yada, yada. You don't talk down your opponent, because if you beat them, then what does that make you look like? Okay, so you beat somebody who's whack. Like, what difference does that make? What you do is you build up your opponent and then say, you're great in all these ways, but I'm still going to beat you. So then it builds them up, so then it makes your win look like a bigger deal. In this episode, I felt like the Rossi and Avasarala got a huge win. Like a huge win getting that data, and they got it easily. And then the episode ends with Marco basically going, yeah, I don't give a shit. That means they're just going to come fight. I'm ready to fight. We're ready. Let's go. I'm like, that to me, that deflated the win. The fact that Marco didn't seem to really give a shit. Like if Marco was like, if the episode ended with Marco finding out in the way that he did, but he was like devastated or he was pissed off and he starts throwing things and he's angry, that would have been perfect. But he literally smiled. So like the win doesn't feel like as much of a win because the person that you beat doesn't even care. And like, it doesn't even care is extreme, but like you get the point though. It kind of deflated the win. So like there was so many questionable decisions here and structurally for this season as a whole that I don't know. It just kind of makes me feel like Amazon doesn't even really care how this ends. And now I'm starting to get worried about how it's going to end because like I said, only 6 episodes and you just had an easy win, that a huge win that you had one of your own characters kind of deflate the importance of. You had Drummer have like her plot line had no progress other than I now have a plan that I want to do. That's it. Philip's plotline had virtually no progress other than showing us that he's not handling his friend's death well, which we already knew anyway. No idea where things are going with Philip. And then Monica, who's been just, being nosy for the whole season, continued to be nosy, and now she was given an assignment. So like very little happened here, and that just made this episode a little bit underwhelming given only 6 episodes that so far have only been about 45 minutes on average. It's a little disappointing. So I'm hoping that now that pieces are in place, these final 4 episodes can really be what they need to be in order to close this thing out respectably. But that's where I stand right now, and I'll see you guys for episode 3. I feel like a lot of y'all probably disagree with me, and I'm probably gonna have like thumbs down on this one. But I'm not gonna sit. My job isn't to sit here and fluff up shit every fucking week. Like, it's like I'm gonna be honest. And if I feel like, I watch something that I enjoy, but it has a weaker episode, I'm going to come on here and say it was a weak episode. I'm not going to sit here and I'm not doing anybody a service if I just come here and say everything is good all the time. Like, what's the point in that? So if you disagree with me, feel free to drop it in the comments, and I'll see you guys next week for episode 3. Peace.